Hi, Pastor Vince with Clergy in Support of the Second Amendment. Today I want to take a deep dive into the resignation letter of an ATF agent. You probably heard about it, but I want to look at the actual text of what he had to say because I think it's really, really important. Now, for those who may not know, before I became a pastor, I was a paramedic for about 10 years. And then after that, I was actually a law enforcement chaplain for a time. So I am very pro law enforcement. And that's why this really gets to me to hear his resignation letter. So let's start off with what may seem a little strange. I'm going to start off toward the end of his resignation letter because he talks about himself and he talks about his values. And I think that's what drives him to say the things he said. This is what he said toward the end. He said, I believe in God. I believe in the Constitution. I believe the bad guys belong in prison. The government no longer believes these things. Since I can no longer do the job the way I think it needs to be done and have an appropriate level of success, then it is time for me to fight from a different angle. I will always fight for good. I will always fight for law enforcement. Thank you, ATF. Be safe and God bless. And he signs it, Brandon Garcia. I want to read a little more about what he has to say. He says, over the past almost 18 years with ATF, I have worked in 4 different states and 5 different cities. I have had at least 9 supervisors and regularly received outstanding evaluations from all of them. I am not a guy who bucks the system or causes problems or brings others down. I'm just a guy who works and asks questions and wants to know the why behind everything. He goes on a little later. He says, I've always said that I do the job for the mission, not the money. Isn't that what we want in our law enforcement officers and our firefighters and our paramedics? I hope so. The mission used to be locking up violent criminals. I don't know what the mission really is anymore, but I don't like it. For the past couple of years, I've found myself asking why a lot more often. As of late, the answer is typically because they said so. I still don't know who they are, but I seem to disagree whatever they are on practically everything. So what I want to do is there's actually 10 insights I want us to look at from his letter, his resignation letter. And the first one, insight 1, the ATF and DOJ are prosecuting less often in blue states. He says, I don't like referring to red or blue states, but at a minimum, I would suspect agents and officers in blue states are not happy. We are a federal agency, and so is the USAO. If the AUSA in certain parts of the country are prosecuting various ATF-type crimes, shouldn't the entire country see similar results? Good question. Why do federal prosecutions vary from state to state? Another very good question. We agents are required to set aside our personal and political opinions and do our job. Why does that same standard not apply to the entire Department of Justice? You know, when I worked in EMS, I had gay partners. I spent more time with them than I did with my wife. We did the job. We set our personal feelings aside and we did the job. That's what has to happen. There can't be an agenda. The second insight he has, insight number 2, the DOJ and ATF are under the control of the political left. He said, I would be curious to know how the rest of the country feels about the Attorney General, their respective U.S. Attorney's Office, and the DOJ as a whole. I think you would probably find that law enforcement officers in a number of states feel the DOJ Civil Rights Division and the woke left are not only running the entire country, but decimating cities and police departments. You may also find in certain areas agents think the ATF is folding to the pressures of the left. Interesting insight. The third insight: ATF agents are not happy with the politicization of their agency. That certainly isn't surprising. This is what he has to say. The last time morale was this low with the ATF was probably 2013 to 2016. What does that coincide with? The last big gun control push. That's what it coincides with. Coincidentally, this was also the last time we had an administration openly criticize law enforcement. Both administrations preach diversity, or rather celebrate it, but then expect everyone to have the same liberal opinion. I think he's right on there. Insight number 4. The ATF leadership is fueling division in the country. This is the 4th administration I have worked under, he says. I have never seen the country more divided than it is right now. We are becoming a country that focuses on extremes, and all the good people in the middle are the ones suffering. Instead of being a rational voice, the government is only adding fuel to the fire. I could not agree more. Insight 5. The ATF leadership has lost the respect of the rank and file. Our agency talks a lot about developing real leaders. If our leaders are afraid or unwilling to fight back against the things they know they are wrong, maybe they are not leaders, he says. Because they said so, or because I said so, should never be an acceptable answer for a leader, and these phrases are never used by a real leader. Having spent time as a paramedic, and then as a pastor, and as a Civil Air Patrol chaplain, I can tell you that's right on. That is dead on. He says, a long time ago when I was a brand new patrol officer in Albuquerque, my training officer told me, if you have to say the words, I'm in charge, then you're not in charge. I can't agree more with that either. The 6th insight. ATF leadership sees guns, not criminals, as the problem. Over the last couple of years, ATF has been spending a significant amount of time talking about and changing the course of the agency to focus upon the gun. Frankly, I don't really care about investigating the gun. I care about investigating the criminal and then plucking that criminal out of society. Isn't that what law enforcement is supposed to do? Insight number 7. Most ATF agents are still pro-Second Amendment. He comes out and says it. Most agents are pro-gun. All agents should be anti-criminal. We do not become ATF agents so we could collect data, ensure that firearms are in compliance, seize trigger groups, argue about what a firearm is or is not, seize firearms for reasons other than prosecuting criminals, or spend countless hours inputting data to justify someone else's existence in headquarters. We became ATF agents so we could work the street and smack evil in the mouth. Man, this is the kind of person we want. We want in federal law enforcement. Insight 8. At least some in federal law enforcement are not happy with the two-tiered justice system that we now have in our country. He says, I think we could also probably agree that the majority of gun owners tend to be more conservative than liberal. So essentially, gun control will affect only the law-abiding conservative citizens. Therefore, the government is only punishing the conservative population. Similarly, in summer 2020, rioters were allowed to burn cities, assault the police, terrorize citizens with little to no consequence. However, the chaos associated with January 6 has resulted in hundreds and hundreds of prosecutions. The vast majority of these defendants have been convicted of simply being there. Wow. Insight number 9. Some, and likely most, ATF agents do not think gun control is the answer. He says, I stand firm that guns are not the problem. The problem is we don't hold criminals accountable for their actions anymore. I have spent the majority of my career working violent crime. I learned long ago you do not combat violent crime by seizing firearms. You combat violent crime by locking up violent criminals for a really long time. Finally, insight 10. The politicization of federal law enforcement appears to him to be permanent. He says now the difference this time is the pendulum swung left and is now locked there through laws and policies. I guess you could say those are basically the 10 reasons why this good man left the ATF. And I just want to comment that I think if the Republicans take the House or the Senate or both in the fall, and if they choose to investigate the ATF, and I hope they will, I'm going to demand that they do that. If they do, I think if they do that, you're going to see a lot more ATF agents come forward. It takes less courage to come forward and testify before Congress than it does to simply quit your job. So, I thought you'd all enjoy that. Be a little bit encouraged that we have people in federal law enforcement who are willing to stand up. We have some that are willing to resign. If we have some that are willing to resign, we have some that are willing to say, no, I won't do that. That's an unconstitutional, it's an illegal order. I won't follow it. And that's a good thing. So that's what I have for you today. I hope you'll like, comment, subscribe, especially on YouTube. We need as many subscribers there as we can. And may God bless you, and I will see you in the next video.